talk right now to these two fine gentlemen. Tell us about the Veterans Fair that's going to be coming on November 5th.
It'll be on Monday, about a week before Veterans Day. It'll run from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll have free food, free entertainment for all veterans and their spouses. It'll be broken up. It'll appear like a job fair. There'll be a bunch of tables set up with people there ready to assist veterans and answer questions, but it's going to be kind of a hybrid setup. We'll have about 15 offices from the Department of Veterans Affairs represented. We'll have 2 mobile clinics out in the parking lot. We'll have the mobile medical clinic from the VA there, which will do flu shots, cholesterol checks, blood pressure checks, and then we'll have the mobile rehabilitation clinic out in the parking lot also, and they'll do physical therapy needs for folks that have mobility issues.
How many veterans are there in Polk County?
It's an interesting question. I've seen a list that had 22,400 on it, and then I read something somewhere that there's 60,000 veterans in Polk County. So to be quite honest, I'm not sure.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Are they not getting the services? Is this a continuing problem that we're having?
Well, I think it's not a continuing problem. It's an issue where people don't have all the information that they need. When the military does their best nowadays, when folks leave the military, of telling veterans what they need, but there's only so much time. And for most folks that are leaving the military, they're thinking about their future. And many don't think, I may need the VA someday to help me out. So, I mean, this is an opportunity for a veteran to get renewed with their information, because information changes, programs change, benefits change. We'll also have quite a few veteran organizations like Disabled American Vets, Wounded Warrior Project, American Legion. We'll have the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. Their Polk County Veterans Council will be represented. And last but not least, the Polk County Veteran Services Office. And then a lot of veterans nowadays aren't just looking for information, they're looking for a job. So we do have some employers there. We'll have about 25 employers that'll be ready to help veterans.
This isn't the first time you've done this. In fact, last May you had one, did you not?
In May I did something a little bit different. It was a seminar, and it was set up to provide information to veterans. The turnout for it was a little bit smaller than what we're going to see with this event. It was more of a classroom type of event. Mm-hmm. This one's a little bit more expanded. I mean, I had 5 months to work on it, and I'm a kind of motivated guy, so I just...
What kind of turnout are you expecting?
Well, we have food for over 600. I would hope we're going to see 1,000.
Wow.
So,
well, how is it when it comes to veterans coming back, not only across the United States but also locally here? How is the employment rate or unemployment rate as compared to the rest of the population? Do you have any idea? And that's why you're pushing it?
Well, I know the unemployment rate, across the board is over 8%. I've heard through the media that unemployment rate for veterans is a little bit higher than the national average. But I mean, with an 8+% unemployment rate, it's a concern for folks. And for some folks, they may be working at a level that is not commensurate with their skills or their expectations, and they may be looking for something a little bit better to help their family out. So that's why the employers are there.
Is there any rationale or do you have any theory as to why the unemployment rate may be a little bit higher for veterans as opposed to that of the regular population? And if I'm an employer, I'm hiring a vet, not only for the patriotic, but also, just because they're probably going to work harder. I mean, they get it. They have that sense that's been instilled in them from going through basic training or whatever other training. I mean, you have to have discipline. So as an employer, in a heartbeat, I'm going to pick a veteran.
Well, I can say when I retired from the Army, it was really it was a little bit challenging for me to translate my military skills into civilian language and to explain to people, hey, but I've done all these things and I've been all these places. Right. And I know with a lot of veterans that's a problem. If you were a loader on a tank or a driver of a tank, I mean, you're going to have a hard time explaining to an employer how that's going to translate into something you can do for them
Do
directly.
you take that as what you are sort of a coordinator at Polk State College? Do you help explain to these veterans, maybe some of the younger ones, yeah, as opposed to calling it that, let's revisit, what you did, your duties, and sort of recast them in terminology that would sort of make sense to a prospective employer as to what they could use in terms of those skills?
Well, what I have done in the past is referred veterans to Polk Works. They have a veteran team there, and their responsibility is to work with veterans, to assist them with their resumes, to assist them with their job search, and to hopefully, when possible, link them up with an employer, provide a referral. So, but yes, I've also helped veterans before with their resumes, and through my experience of working in the civilian world, because I've been a civilian, I guess, for about 9 years now, I've learned a lot about resumes and looking for a job. So,
Sergeant Major, chime in here. You are spent, let's see here, 24 years in the military,
Yes, sir.
and you're now in culinary school. That was an interesting transition.
Well, I've always enjoyed cooking, even in the military. Although I didn't do it in the military, I really enjoyed doing it, on my off time there. But I decided to, when I got out, I retired. So I decided to put my passion, which is cooking, along with my retirement, and open a business. So currently I run a small catering business, barbecue, right now, and all my profits go to veterans organizations. So that's what I do in my off time right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that when we come back. We have to take a break.
Hello, I'm Mark Mcmann. I started Mcmann, PA after serving 10 years as a United States Army JAG Corps officer, as a military lawyer. That experience instilled in me certain attributes, including dedication, loyalty, sacrifice, hard work. I have made those attributes the cornerstone, the foundation of Mcmann, PA. If you're going through a divorce, a paternity action, a child custody battle, or perhaps a child support battle, call us at 863-393-9010 or visit us at mcmannlaw.com. We are with you, honest, hardworking, and loyal every step of the way.
I'm Brent Gohagen of Gohagen, PA. If you are a business owner, you have undoubtedly had that moment when you realize, I wish I had someone trained to help me, guide me in the drafting of that contract, or you have been concerned about the prospect of your business being sued over something frivolous or needing guidance in a business dispute regarding some negligence or intentional action on the part of another business or individual. We are here to navigate you through this. We care because we know as a small business it matters to you. Visit us at Gohagen, PA.
Studio Sergeant Major Sherman Roberts, who retired from the United States Army after 24 years, and retired Lieutenant Colonel Ken Agosta, who also was in the United States Army for 23 years. We have Mark Mcmann, who, by the way, you have not mentioned, and it certainly deserves mentioning, that you served in the active duty, and you are a reserve major in the United States Judge Advocate General.
That's correct. Yes, it's been one heck of a ride, and it's been a fun ride. And the experience that you get from that, even just being a JAG attorney the way I was, the experience you get from not only traveling, from working, from being deployed, to just dealing with the Army family, to any of these places that you go, is something that you cannot put a price tag on, not only from the experience, but also going forward and applying it to your everyday world. Like, you were just saying, Sergeant Major, as we left and went to break, that you started a company. Tell the listeners a little bit about that.
Well, my passion was cooking, so my wife encouraged me to start a company so I can cook, and I've always wanted to give back to the community, and so I've decided to, with my company, that all my profits will go to veterans organizations in some way, form, or manner.
What's the name of your company?
My name, Sergeant Major Barbecue is the name of the company.
Is it here in Polk County?
It is here in Polk County.
Can they find you on the web?
They can.
All right.
Yes.
What's the web address?
Sergeant Major Barbecue.
Sergeant Major Barbecue.
Yes, sir. You can go in there and you search barbecue in Lakeland, and you'll find me.
All
So
right.
you started this, I mean, because you just got out about a year ago, you said?
Yes, sir. About a year and a half.
So you not only have started this business, this company, but you also are going to culinary school, as we talked about. One of the things that, well, still talking about your company, you cater, and in fact, you're catering this event that's coming up for the Polk State on November 5th, right?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
And what are you going to be providing?
We're going to have some great pulled pork sandwiches out there, some drinks. We'll have some nice little desserts. Along with my food, we'll also have a little bit of Subway's going to provide a little food out there as well for those that don't like barbecue. You know, the calories may just be a little too much for them. But, yeah, we'll have some great pulled pork sandwiches for everybody.
Do you guys need a table for attorneys to talk about criminal defense-related
yeah,
issues?
yeah, we'll come eat and talk.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Mark's allowed to show up. He's a veteran. But
Yeah.
how about, Mark, you do a lot of trusts and wills and that sort of thing. I know that you reach out to veterans quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is that the sort of thing that...
Absolutely. A lot of them are in need of that. I mean, whether they be young people wanting to update or either wills or create a trust or older veterans that, are getting older in the twilight of their lives and they, realize that they need to start to plan. So we do a lot of that. In fact, I remember just talking stories when I first got in. I got in June 2011, and I went to my first duty station September 11th, or June of 2001. Got to my duty station September 11th of 2001. And I pulled into Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and it's weird because I saw on the news, this was going on, and I go to meet my colonel, my first colonel, Colonel Burrell. I pull in, and right as I pull in, they shut down Fort Sill. So I was caught in there for 6 days because nobody knew what the heck was going on. But that first weekend, I pulled in on a Wednesday. That first weekend, I was doing wills because everybody thought, we're going to get the warning order and may have to go. And so, it was like, hey, welcome to the Army. You really got to hit the ground running. So, when it comes to, we were talking during the break that you had tried when you first got out to get a job in a particular area which you had quite a bit of experience. So go ahead and tell the listeners about that. I mean, you had so many soldiers that were working for you. I mean, you had a monumental task and a big job, but yet it didn't translate, and it's hard to translate.
Right. I was the division operations sergeant major, and the division holds about 26,000 soldiers. I had a staff of about 125 that worked under me that I helped control along with the Fulberg colonel. And when I got out, I tried to get a job as an operations manager. And it's just very difficult for somebody who's never been in the military to understand the complex nature of your job while you're in there. And it's so hard to put it on paper or one or two pages of paper, the level of responsibility that you had and that you can do the job. You got to be given the chance to do it. And so that was my difficult thing is people wanted experience in that field at whatever job I was applying for. I applied for, I think it was the Florida Soccer Association operations manager, and they wanted somebody who knew soccer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can learn soccer. If I can learn all the other complex things I had to do in the military, learning soccer is not that difficult of a job. So, yeah, it was a little frustrating at times.
We right before we went to the break, we were talking about, and I know, Ken, you were saying that you had not heard this, but I have read actually several articles on this. I know Mark has read some as well, that perhaps the publicity that PTSD has gotten with our soldiers may have been more successful than we originally planned for, because a lot of prospective employers are concerned that if they hire somebody who has been deployed to Afghanistan or Iraq, that they're going to be bringing on a whole bunch of mental health related issues. And I can tell you that, like I said, clearly, I don't know, is it, do we have any more PTSD than we did 25 years ago, or is it just better treatment and we're recognizing it more so than before? But how have you two gentlemen, what is the perception amongst the veterans with respect to that issue in the employment realm?
Well, I think today we live in an information overload world, right, where we get all the information, and we're a lot better, too, at taking information, digesting it, and making, hopefully, better decisions. And I think when it's coming to soldiers, maybe a little bit further back to Vietnam, a little bit different than the Vietnam experience, the leadership of the military has said, well, we've got to treat this just like we do any other medical disorder, heart attack or a broken foot or what it may be. And I don't think the stresses in Afghanistan or Iraq were necessarily any more stressful than the situations in Vietnam, or that the American soldier or airman or sailor or Marine are any different than what they were 30 years ago. But I just think we're better equipped to deal with problems. And I think for a lot of Vietnam veterans, they were forced because of demands in the society and their particular organizations to just keep those things inside of them
Yeah.
and deal with it on their own.
I think you made a good point about the information age that we live in. I remember talking about this on a show either last week or the week before. Is not, people will say, well, they're scared to do certain things because of the crime. Crime is actually at historical lows right now, but when a particularly vicious crime is committed in Missouri, we find out about it instantly here. No matter if a crime is committed anywhere in the United States, you can find out about it on your phone inside of a matter of seconds, because we live in an information age. So these soldiers, the overwhelming majority, clear overwhelming majority of these soldiers are ready, willing, and able to serve in the private sector, and so people should not read too much into it. Yes, we have more cases of PTSD in the past, but it's not like it's disproportionate. It's just that we're recognizing, and these folks are getting treatment that they didn't get generations ago.
And I think that's the key. I think today we have just as many as we did back then, but now we're getting treatment for them. So as an employer, I would look at that and say, hey, he may have an issue, but he's receiving treatment for it.
And the vast majority of them, Sherman, probably don't have an issue. And I think that's, I guess, what we're getting is that the articles that we were talking about, where prospective employers are concerned that, oh my gosh, this guy served in Iraq or Afghanistan, he probably has PTSD. I don't know what percentage have it, but I suspect the overwhelming majority do not. I mean,
Very low.
Very little, but those that do have gotten a lot of publicity. Not that they've gone out and sought the publicity, but the affliction has been recognized more so than it was in the past. And we are going to have to take a break in just a minute, but from the legal side, we're going to talk about veterans courts that have been springing up throughout the state, and one that we have coming here in Polk County in the months to come. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Law Talk, sponsored by the Kaylor Law Group in Mcmann, PA. I want to give a special shout out to my brother, who is probably not listening. He just got back from Pakistan. My brother is a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, is in Central Command, and I was just over there for 2 or 3 weeks. He's been back, gosh, I guess this will be like his third visit.
Does he enjoy Pakistan?
No, he
Yeah.
doesn't enjoy it at all. He enjoys coming back from Pakistan.
Yeah.
He doesn't much care for it all, but he did about 14 months over there. Got back from there about 6 months ago, and since then he's been back 2 or 3 times. So I appreciate his service, and I appreciate the service of these 2 fine gentlemen who have joined us today: retired Lieutenant Colonel Ken Agosta and retired Sergeant Major Sherman Roberts. Well, I want to go into some of the great stories that Lieutenant Colonel Agosta has for us, but I do want to mention the Veterans Court that is going to be coming here in Polk County. It looks like, I think, towards the first of the year, the legislature approved some funds to set up veterans courts throughout the state, and they're starting to pop up here and there. Our chief judge is a gentleman by the name of Bruce Smith. Is a great guy, and apparently is a very strong proponent of the veterans court. Our court administrator, Nick Zitzina, who does an amazingly good job, is also very much in favor of this particular program. We don't exactly know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to be a diversion program, meaning that if you do the requirements of this program, the charge will be dismissed, or if it's going to be a program for people to go to after they have already been convicted. But the purpose of this program is going to help those veterans who are having some issues, primarily with staying within the confines of the law, get the treatment that they need to help avoid coming back to court in the future. And I think that the Polk County court system is going to be reaching out to organizations like yourself to help these veterans be directed towards the services that they obviously have been missing. And so that is supposed to come online probably either later this year or early next year. Now, let's let Mark, you take it from there.
Yeah,
Let's
Colonel
talk to-
Colonel Augusta, your background. I mean, you were in the military for over 20, how many years?
23 years.
23 years. Tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, you made lieutenant colonel, some of the areas you were in, and how you came about to be in those areas.
Okay. Well, I started out as an infantryman and did the traditional assignments, during my career: platoon leader, company commander. Did a couple of interesting tours as an instructor, as an infantryman, and also I did a tour in recruiting command, which some people don't think are very fun tours. but it was okay. It was a good learning experience, although I wouldn't have
I
wanted
heard
to
that's
stay
a
out there.
grind. Doing the
Back
recruiting.
then it was.
Yeah.
The numbers.
then
It's
it
all about the numbers. It's all about.
Back then it was pretty tough duty.
Yeah.
And then about halfway through my career, just past the halfway mark, I got the opportunity to work in my functional area, and I selected to my functional area as Middle East, North Africa Foreign Area Officer. And I made this decision after doing a UN peacekeeping tour in Egypt and Israel, where I had met some foreign area officers that were there in training. And I thought, wow, this could be pretty interesting. So once I made that decision, the Army sent me to Naval Postgraduate School. I got a National Security Affairs Master of Arts degree with a focus on the Middle East and North Africa. Went to Defense Language Institute. I had the choice of taking Arabic or French. I elected to take French. Not a very good language learner. It took me 50 some odd years to master English, so I didn't think I could master Arabic in a year. So I took French, and my first assignment after I finished those qualifying schools was at the Pentagon. I worked in the National Military Joint Intelligence Center Alert Center, which was the intelligence component of the Military Command Center, and had a really great 2 years there and had two fantastic jobs. After that, I went to Eritrea for 2 years. I was part of CENTCOM at that time, and I was the chief of the U.S. Liaison Office there. It was at the American Embassy. It happened to coincidentally be at the time when Eritrea and Ethiopia were fighting a war, and that gave me a certain perspective on life and watching a country go through a war.
What was that like? I mean, day-to-day living.
Well, I mean, the Eritreans are pretty calm, cool, collected
Where is
people.
Eritrea? This is embarrassing.
It's the Horn of Africa, south of Sudan, north of Djibouti, right across from Yemen and Saudi Arabia.
Were you hoping for like a sweet gig in Israel and you end up in Eritrea?
Well, I've been in Israel a couple of
Okay.
times, but no, I volunteered to go to Eritrea.
Okay.
How long were you there?
I was there 2 years.
Okay.
The people were fantastic there. It was 2 years with 5 minutes of excitement, 10 times, in my view.
Is Somalia ever going to get its act together?
I don't know.
That's a failed state. I mean, do you think there's any hope for Somalia? You said that Eritrea is right next door to Somalia, right? Or did you say Ethiopia?
Well, Ethiopia.
Oh, sorry.
Somalia is a little bit further.
Whatever.
It's like, why are you asking about Somalia? I want to talk about Eritrea.
I'm sorry.
The UN and the African Union's there, and they're trying to help Somalia.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not optimistic about Somalia.
No.
All right, go on. I'm sorry.
So after go ahead.
No, just you were there for 2 years. and-
After Eritrea, I went to this UN peacekeeping assignment called United Nations Truth Supervision Organization. This was the second time I'd been there, and I was in Israel for a year. I lived in Jerusalem. I was the chief plans officer for the organization, and that was a great assignment. And then my final 2 years in the Army were at the U.S. Embassy in Tunisia.
Well, let's talk about some of the rip from the headlines type issues here. Give us your take on Benghazi.
Yeah, you just said you're at a U.S. embassy in Tunisia, and this obviously
Right.
is a consulate, and they were under attack. And I mean, obviously, you were saying there's conspiracy theories that of course. No, but what are your thoughts on it with what happened and what you know?
It's terrible, and I mean, it should be a good point that 9/11's not really over, and our country faces threats today that many people take for granted because they don't see those threats. And our military and civilian personnel that are overseas are in danger at times, depending on where they're located and what they're doing. So, I mean,
Colonel, sometimes you'll hear some folks say that, gosh, you just feel like you want to wash your hands of the entire region and just pull everything out. Why is that not a good idea? Why do we have to have a presence in some of these hostile countries?
well, I don't think we should wash our hands of the region, and I think we should strive to have a presence and potentially have a partnership or a productive influence in the region, because if not, what will we get in return? I mean, what will happen? I think America's certainly the strongest country in the world with the best leadership in the world, and I think we should take a leadership role in the world. Many people don't agree with that, but I think without our leadership, I think the world will be a more dangerous place. And I think the Middle East and North Africa, without our leadership, could potentially be a more dangerous region.
Let's hit some of the various countries that was in your zone when you served. Libya. What are your obviously none of us can predict in the future, but what do you feel about the government of Libya? And we talked before we went on the air that what it takes for a democracy to thrive as a middle class, literate population, and a few other things. Go through that criteria and let's visit some of these countries.
Well, some of the things I think it takes for a country to have a successful democracy: a common religion, predominantly anyways, a common language, a common currency, a middle class, and a high literacy rate. And I mean, if you take the country of Libya, for example, I mean, Gaddafi didn't allow the education system to develop in Libya, so the literacy rate is an issue. There's probably not, if there is a middle class, it's not very large. It's probably the very wealthy along with the very poor. So those things will have to be overcome with time. But I'm a optimistic person when it comes to Libya. I think the Libyan people have a strong heart. They fought for their independence, and I think with assistance from the international community and the United States, I think their government will get strong and be able to provide their people the types of services that they're entitled to.
What about Syria? That's one of the other ones we were talking about. Syria right now, obviously they're going through a war. There's rebels. There may be some infiltration, I think you indicated.
So here's where you get my strong opinions, but not necessarily any facts.
That's okay. That's how this show operates.
I think the Syrian rebels will win eventually, and the Assad regime will fall. It's a matter of time when that's going to happen. What we should be wary of is how will the rebels govern the country? Who will provide the influence for how they will govern the country? We had talked earlier about, I had heard a report on the news where some weapon systems from Libya had been seen in Syria in the hands of the rebels, and was talking to my wife, and I thought, well, how could they get there? And I thought, well, they probably got there by some Islamic fundamentalist group, perhaps like an Al-Qaeda or a splinter organization. And what will those organizations expect from the rebels when the rebels now control the country? Because at some point in time, there's going to have to be a group of political thinkers that are going to have to decide how the country is going to be run after the Assad regime's gone. And if there were strong supporters of the rebels that were fundamentalists and Al-Qaeda-based organizations, they're going to have a say in how that country is going to be set up. And that's not good for anybody in the region.
Some countries have been historically more secular than others. Turkey, as an example. In terms of Syria, where do they fit on the spectrum?
Well, I was in Syria for a year when I worked for the United Nations as a security officer, and Syria under Assad was a very secular country. I mean, if the family ran the country, there was one person in charge, but it was a secular country. So, and there was virtually no terrorism.
Well, do you feel as if, well, you were saying that this weapon system from Libya is seen in Syria. Do we actually know, intelligence-wise, do we know who these people are, who we're dealing with? Like, that was one of the questions, these people in Libya, who are they? I mean, these rebels, do we know? You would think that we would have enough intelligence to, at least on the ground, to be able to make that call and identify what are we getting into.
As a normal citizen, I mean, I'm like you. I watch the media and listen to what they say, and that's where I get all my information. That and on the internet. So, you'd have to assume there's many things we don't know, right, as normal citizens.
Well, just from your experience, though, having been over there, I mean, do you get the sense not only that the government was all over, but also that we have intelligence in those areas? I mean, since Syria is so closely aligned with Iran, you'd think that we would. I mean, do you have any idea? And maybe you've been out of the game too long, and things have changed since.
Well, I've been out for almost 10 years.
Yeah, so things have changed to where you wouldn't necessarily see that or be able to comment on that.
I probably wouldn't be able to comment on it.
All right, folks, we got to take a break. We'll be right back with Lieutenant Ken Agosta and Sergeant Major Sherman Roberts.
I'm Brent Gohagen of Gohagen, PA. If you are a business owner, you have undoubtedly had that moment when you realize, I wish I had someone trained to help me, guide me in the drafting of that contract, or you have been concerned about the prospect of your business being sued over something frivolous or needing guidance in a business dispute regarding some negligence or intentional action on the part of another business or individual. We are here to navigate you through this. We care because we know as a small business it matters to you. Visit us at Gohagen, PA.
Lieutenant Colonel Ken Agosta and Sergeant Major Sherman Roberts, both of whom retired from the United States Army after 23 and 24 years of service, respectively. Where we left off, Colonel, we were trying to ask you some questions about specific areas. I want to talk about sort of a general principle. Democracy is a messy business, and so you talked about how Assad was, and when Assad was there, it was a very secular government, and clearly it was going to suppress certain elements of extremist organizations. And I have no doubt that when you unleash the forces of democracy, that you're going to hear some voices that you do not want to hear. There's some voices that were suppressed, and I think people need to understand is that we gave the example before we started the show that while we may not like that Hamas won an election in the Palestinian territory, the fact is they won an election, and we should not be surprised that when there is a democracy, in my opinion, is this. I mean, I think we need to have an influence there. I agree with Mark that we certainly need to have a capitalist influence there. But we cannot say that we're for democracy only for those democracies that we happen to like. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree. However, if a party or a government is now in control and they have significant opposing viewpoints than we do from a foreign policy's perspective, there's nothing that says we have to be allies with them either.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
but we talk about, there seems to be sort of folks get upset. Well, look what's happened in these countries. They've elected these governments that are hostile towards certain policies that we have. And I'm not saying that we need to be friendly with these governments. We can absolutely take a contrary position to what they are saying. But when George Bush talked about democracy, is on the march and freedom is on the march, we can't control what happens in some of these countries. If they want to have free and open elections, they can elect whomever they want. And I think that people need to understand that we still need to be engaged and we still need to try to influence it. But if they're going to have an elections, they're not going to elect a Republican or a Democrat. They're going to elect whoever they think is appropriate.
right. And there used to be an old adage that I always heard when I was in the military: democracies generally don't fight wars against democracies. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so even though we may not agree on their ideology or their foreign policy issues, I don't think there's any benefit for a new democracy into going out and picking a fight with somebody either.
Yeah.
Well, isn't the danger, though, is if some of these democracies, the way they're voting, is can pretty much be the only vote, because once they elect certain, Islamic fundamentalists in, that's going to be the last vote you're going to have.
Well, then it's not a democracy, then it's a dictatorship.
Right.
I've heard that a lot. I mean, when I worked in Tunisia, that's what some of the Tunisian military folks that I worked with always said. There's only one vote if an Islamic fundamentalist group is voted into power, and that's their vote when they take power.
My position changes when it comes to that. I mean, if they have elected I think you can take a hostile position towards any government, including a democracy. But I think I agree with what you're saying. A government that is democratically elected is going to have to answer to the people, and the people are not going to be particularly pleased if the government is running off and picking fights with the United States of America, and the sons and daughters of the people are going to be bear the brunt of that war. And so democracy in that sense is going to slow down the aggressive tendencies of certain governments. But if those democracies become dictatorships, then it's fair game as far as I'm concerned. But I guess fundamentally what I was saying is that you hear a lot of folks complaining, and to be quite honest with you, some of the neoconservatives saying, well, look what's happening. We've got these democracies, they've had these elections, and next thing you know, they're electing people that disagree with our policies. Well, it's an election. We don't get to control the elections of a different country, because then it would not be an election. It would not be a free and open election. And I think that's what we should stand for.
I agree. I agree.
Sergeant Major, what do you think?
And I think that, when we brought our democracy here to the United States some 200 plus years ago, we've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations to get to where we are right now. And these other countries are going to have to go through those trials and tribulations as well.
Mm-hmm. The birthing process is painful.
That's right. And we're still not perfect at it. We still have problems within our own government that we're still trying to work through today. So we can't expect them to be perfect today, what took us over 200 years, and we're still not doing it correctly in all cases.
Yeah, in order to form a more perfect union where we're striving for
Yeah.
protection, we
Yeah.
don't have it. We haven't figured it out yet.
What are your thoughts on, and we were talking about this at the last break, and Sergeant Major, I'll ask you this first, the wisdom of putting a withdrawal date, as has been done in Iraq, as has been done now in Afghanistan? I mean, you can't stay there forever. We all agree to that. But what do you think of the wisdom in doing that?
I guess I'm not key on the total withdrawal. I think leaving some presence there has always been good for us, as well as good for the other country. I mean, you look at we went into Desert Storm. We left the presence there on the ground, not only for us but for that country as well. And it also leaves us a platform there to fall into if we need to, if that region ever requires us to go back there. So. To do a total withdrawal, I'm not a big supporter of it, especially when you have a government that's working so hard, as the Iraqi government, for instance, to become a better government. Mm-hmm. So to pull us totally out of there, I'm not sure it was the right decision, but I supported it because my commander-in-chief said that's what we would do.
Got it. Sir?
Just personal opinion. I mean, and I'll just provide one side about the point you put on the wall and you say, okay, we're going to be out of here by this date. It does give your opponent a date to look at too, and all they have to do is wait you out. Or realize that they may be able to make you very miserable all the way up to that date when you leave. I would be more in favor of conditions on the ground dictating when to end a particular operation rather than a date.
So picking an arbitrary date, if they say we're going to be out here in July of 2016, well, the Taliban is saying, well, okay, we got to make it to August of 2016.
Right.
I mean, that's the concern. But at the same time, I guess from the other side is that, if you don't have an out date, you're never going to get out.
Well, that's a good point. Or a plan on when you must achieve the conditions on the ground that you need to achieve to get out. That'll get you there.
Well, and the other side of it, though, too, is, to be able to link it up together, I don't know, it'd be very difficult, but you have our soldiers being killed over in Afghanistan. You have them being killed by people that they're training with and training. And it's almost like if you have a date like that, people that are going to be left there are going to say, you're not going to have my back when you're gone, so you're not going to have my loyalty now. What are your thoughts on that?
I didn't understand the question.
Do you understand the question? Basically, the people that are left aren't going to have any loyalty to you because you're going to leave. Taliban's going to be here, so I'm going to kiss their butt in a sense, and because they could kill me when you leave. I'm not going to help you out,
Oh, I see
America.
what you're saying. I got you.
Well, I guess that's possible. I mean, not being on the ground and not talking with folks in Afghanistan, it's a little bit hard to play, what do you want to call it, Monday morning quarterback with it. But certainly point out, and with your allies in the country, with them realizing you're going to be gone by a certain date, they're certainly going to realize that, hey, someday Big Brother is leaving.
Yeah.
And maybe from an opposing point, though, maybe that's a good thing. And maybe they'll get down to business, too, if they realize that.
All right, folks,
one
we got to
more
wrap it up. I want to give one more plug for Sergeant Major Barbecue. Find him
Yeah.
on the internet, Sergeant Major Barbecue.
Cool.
And I want to thank retired Lieutenant Colonel Ken Agosta and Sergeant Major Sherman Roberts for joining us. There is going to be a Veterans Fair at Polk State College in Lakeland on, November 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Can provide our veterans information about the services that are available to them. We think anywhere from about 20-something thousand, perhaps up to 60,000 veterans in Polk County, and apparently 1.6 million veterans in the state of Florida. And we're happy to have each and every one of them. Thank you for your service. God bless both of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Hello, I'm Mark Mcmann. I started Mcmann, PA after serving 10 years as a United States Army JAG Corps officer, as a military lawyer. That experience instilled in me certain attributes, including dedication, loyalty, sacrifice, hard work. I have made those attributes the cornerstone, the foundation of Mcmann, PA. If you're going through a divorce, a paternity action, a child custody battle, or perhaps a child support battle, call us at 863-393-9010 or visit us at mcmannlaw.com. We are with you, honest, hardworking, and loyal every step of the way.